CSI National, AI, and dirty boots. We have a lot to discuss, and this time we've got a guest too. Welcome to What the RFI. I'm Matt Brennan, and this is the podcast dedicated to CA from the lens of an architect and a project coordinator. So this week has been different. We've been at CSI National, and it's been quite a blast. It's been in Houston, Texas. And not only that, I'm here with Nathan Taylor from DTR. And so say hi, Nathan.
Thanks for having me today. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's been fun. And backstory, I think what's really cool is that you and I met at last year's CSI Minneapolis National event. It was my first event, and I had no clue of anybody, right? I just started my career at Part 3, came on board, and you were one of the first people I met. I think we're at the round table, and then we said, let's do a run, and look at tradition's taken us. So
yeah, we were able to run this year as well, and a good way to warm up things and break a new fad into our conference attendees. It'll be great.
But we haven't recruited anyone yet. But
we're working on it.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we can get one tonight, and yeah, wouldn't that be? We'll just like we saw a bunch of bikes rolling out. It was crazy, and I'm sure we can get a whole bunch of runners. So anyways, I think before we get into it, tell about yourself, your company, shoot your plug.
Yeah, so I'm a building envelope consultant, and I work for DTR Consulting Services out of Northern California. Our projects are up and down the coast, including Arizona and Nevada and some in Hawaii.
Nice. Very cool.
We do write our own specs. However, most of the work that I do is based in construction administration. So I spend about half my time on site and half the time in the office taking care of RFIs and submittals and the paperwork that goes along with being on site.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so CSI National, this is an event, it's for all basically spec writers, there's huge members, all different individual chapters, if you're not involved, check it out. Again, very beneficial. You guys help each other out. I haven't been the benefit of being a member like you have. So
there's been a lot of cross networking, meet a lot of really good people from all over the nation, at least for the national conference. I happen to be on the board of the Sacramento chapter as president right now, which has been amazing. Again, you meet wonderful people in your area. They're all industry professionals. So it's a great way to get networked, but also the educational events that come with it are wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. So I guess with CSI, we've got one more day, and it's been jam-packed since, I got here on Tuesday, you got here yesterday, and it's just been a tornado, and this is the final moment going on. You can hear in the hotel background of, the parties going on, and it's still, but any top moments for you?
Well, this year is the first year I've been able to present, which has been really cool. I co-presented with a friend of mine that I also met through CSI, actually studying for the CDT certification, so that was fun. We both met online for that one in a study group. Again, across the country during COVID, you weren't meeting in person, so being able to talk online was great. Yeah. Having a study group that we could work together and pass that certification was great. CDT is amazing for project management. So anybody, again, in the industry who wants to learn more about how the entire project comes together, great opportunity to learn that. And so being able to present this year was really fun. It's the first time I've been able to give back in that way. So it's been nice.
Yeah, we're going to definitely talk about that in a minute. But yeah, it's been like any conference, lots of AI talks, the keynote, they were going on about that. And, it was fun. We had a good little question because someone challenged about, what was the question that individual asked? It was about learning core values. And
yeah, the idea that taking on AI helps with expediting a lot of different processes, but then people who are not doing those as a learning curve aren't getting that benefit in the long term, which it's a good conversation that needs to be had, especially in an industry where a lot of things are learned firsthand by getting your boots dirty and being out on site and working on things and seeing how things are actually done. Again, AI has its place, but we'll see how fast it develops. We're hoping to use it to make ourselves better, but we have to put the hard work into, I think.
Yeah. No, and I was telling you one story I heard on LinkedIn where it was two groups of students, 3 and 3, and they, the challenge was they had to write a report on topic, X or whatever. And, one group was allowed to use the computer and internet and AI and all that fun stuff, and they'd bang the report out in something like 30 minutes, like just gone out. And, it was good quality for what it was. And then the other group had to go to the library and pull out the encyclopedias, no electronics, nothing. And yeah, probably took them 4 hours, I think. But the retention was with the guys that sat down and flipped the pages. The other guys couldn't talk anything about it.
Yeah, again, learning by doing. When you put in the time to make an effort, your retention is great, but then you also apply it to other things that you're doing as well. And that's a big part of like the construction industry, at least, learning from people doing things. You're going to learn it and hold on to it much more and be able to apply it to different applications if you've already picked it up that way.
And here's a question with like some of this new staff, kids coming out of school, like how many have actually had any real experience, even with mom or dad? It doesn't matter. Like literally picking up a hammer, picking up a nailer, building a piece of millwork.
Yeah, that's a kind of a expanding trend. I would say a lot of people don't even have like the backyard DIY with dad and mom or, home renovations. And then you look at even in the architecture schools that you talk about a lack of, business knowledge or construction knowledge because they're learning the school side of architecture, but not the business side of it they're going to use in the field.
Yeah.
So coming into a firm, it's another learning curve, and trying to find an opportunity to be on site or to learn the business aspect of a firm is also really important. So again, by doing stuff, you're going to retain that a lot better.
And like one thing I was taught by Richard Negrin, one of my old principals that I worked under, and right away, I remember he got so mad at the firm or whatever it was. And like, cause people were just making mistakes left, right, and center. And he brought a piece of trace in there, quiet as a room. And he just started drawing. And he's like, as I'm drawing this, I'm drawing the wall, but I'm drawing my mind. It was this whole pencil act versus like Revit just going click, 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 and not having any context. And that goes back to the whole hands-on touchy feeling. And
I'm a huge advocate for hand drawing. For me, it's a communication thing. So being on site, you almost always have a contractor who like pulls out a Sharpie and draws on a piece of cardboard or something to work out a problem, but everybody understands that drawing. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not like a CAD reference drawing where everything's crisp, but it's a communication tool. And the other part of that is that you really retain things by drawing them. Like when you, as a person developing, your eyes actually grow out of your brain. So they're already like connected for that purpose. Like most of the information you gather in your life is visual. And so being able to communicate by drawing is a really big thing. So,
and it's October. And what's going on in October there, Nathan?
I've been hosting an Inktober architecture event for the last 4 years now. And we post prompts for each day during the month of October. And this year we've had, I think, over 300 so far, different individuals. And then we have several different firms that have been producing like staff drawings as well, and a couple in Europe, which has been really cool. We had a French firm that has been participating, which has been amazing. But just trying to promote drawing, but also build up the camaraderie of getting out together and doing something fun and sharing and inspiring each other. So,
and how many years is like I tried it out last year. I failed miserably not to keep up with every day.
If you did any of them, you succeeded.
Yeah.
This will be our 4th year.
That's awesome.
We're trying to make it bigger and bigger each year. So we'll see what happens next year. But this year's already going pretty good so far.
Yeah. So just like anything, it just curves up. So cool. That is awesome. Yeah, I guess, it was always fun. Like I said, we talked AI. Was there anything, we talked about the availability or the kind of holding the retention, but anything that stuck out today that you're like, hey, that's really cool, or you want to check out?
So one of the conversations that I keep hearing about, again, is this transfer of knowledge and seeing how many young people are here or like hardcore industry professionals who have been here for a long time. And it's unfortunate because a lot of the people who have been here for a long time, we only have so much time with them to pass that information on. And if we don't have the younger crowd in now, we're going to lose that opportunity. And it's a rich, rich opportunity to learn a ton of information from people who literally wrote books on this stuff. Yeah. And so like you see a couple of scholarship recipients this year, like for CDT and things like that. And like, hands off to them. They're doing a great job, but that's what the industry really needs. And I think it's across the board. Yeah. We need to get more young people out and learning about things and getting involved in projects earlier the better.
Yeah. Last week I was out in the river with my son and I asked him, Are they are they teaching anything about AI in school, right? He's middle school, right? He's grade 8 in that sense. And I was thinking, I wonder if they're doing anything. And no, there wasn't. There was nothing going on.
My son's in 7th grade.
Are they teaching anything about AI?
I don't know about AI, but they're doing some programming work. So they're already kind of
Yes.
edging towards that. I have a feeling by the time they hit high school, though, it's going to be a whole new thing that they're going to be involved in.
Yeah, exactly.
So, good STEM classes, and it's coming. So we need to be prepared for it. And us, the older generation, we have to figure out how to deal with this as it comes up too. So.
And like my kids are old enough for like they have iPhones and stuff. And with the new iOS 19.1 or whatever, that's going to be like the first AI in their palm of their hand. So that will be their first exposure.
Even Google prompting for AI, when you do a search at this point, it pops up with a bunch of stuff that, retroactively, they're just looking at it and saying, you're probably asking about this, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see how that plays. But core values, keep up with it and just keep, make them draw by hand. Exactly. And get them out. And that brings us into the next topic about their dirty boots session that you did. First of all, great topic and great session. You and Julia just wow. It was really cool.
Thanks very much. It was a presentation that we've kind of built and rewritten a couple of times. It came out of basically an online conference session during COVID where nobody could meet. So we were all online, and we had met through that study group and decided hey, let's present together. And she was doing a similar presentation or a similar type of job scope that I was with building envelope at the time. So it just made sense to talk about that and relationships on site and how things worked. And then the version we gave today is the new and improved, but really dives into the idea of getting specifiers and architects who are usually in the office doing work, but getting them on site to actually see what they're designing being built and the different benefits and reasons behind why that's important.
Have you taken anyone, like, again, kind of like newer staff, have you dragged them along to some of these site meetings with you?
I have been really lucky. Our office is a huge advocate for getting people out and doing things that they haven't done before.
Okay.
And even for me, like, I got to start reviewing specs, which is not something I have a history of doing. So when I joined the firm, that was one of the things they asked to do.
Yeah.
Being that I do so much CA work, I try to get other staff members on sites every opportunity I get.
That's so cool.
If it's close to our office and it won't affect the budget too much, do it. If it's an opportunity to see something that they're not going to see again, I'll take them with me.
Nice.
Every time we get a chance, we'll ask, like, how busy are they? Does it fit into the schedule this week? And then try to make it happen, because it is an opportunity to learn just as well as anything else.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like a couple of weeks ago when I was at AI Aspire in Nashville there before the floods, unfortunately. But one of the classes was all about mentorship. And with mentorship, they some of them were talking about what their practice were doing. They would have each Monday or Tuesday or whatever it was of every week. So 4 times a month, they would have a mentorship kind of get together and just talk and kind of coach each other. And what do you want to learn? And again, maybe that's an idea, but you're already doing it by the sounds of it. So it's so cool.
Yeah, just trying to reach out for the scope of work that our company does as well. Like, we're not a traditional architecture firm. I mean, we're architects and we are registered and we can do architecture record scope and stamp documents, but we focus on building envelope, but our background is spec writing.
Right.
So it's interesting that as our company has developed, we've taken on additional scope now, being a lot of CA, on-site construction, and then forensic work as well, which has been really interesting. And those, again, huge learning opportunities. Like, dissecting somebody else's work because of a failure and figuring out why is a huge opportunity to learn a bunch of new stuff.
Oh, 100%.
So that's been fun too.
And they must just like deer in the headlights, probably the first time. Like, and it's so funny. Like, even put yourself when you were young, doing details, drawing that detail, and then you go out to the site and you're like, that doesn't look like it, but it is the detail. Like, but now you're looking at it as a whole different 3D.
The first building that I got to design with a team, but where the design was largely mine, was a shipping container house, a large one in China when I was living there. And it failed miserably. But it's an amazing project because I can go back and reference, it was all waterproofing issues, which is exactly what I do now.
Yes.
And how much I learned from that and how we solved it, because we did go back and retrofit, like, fit everything and fix it. Yeah. But huge learning curve, but great project to be able to reference.
Yeah, no kidding. No, that is a good point. And I was just going to say that, like, again, I did a whole bunch of home renos in my place. So I did all these millwork details. And then I was like, this is beautiful. The renderings are everything complete. And then I look, I'm like, I got to build this now. And I'm looking at my drawings and I'm like, I forgot a dimension. Oh, I forgot. And I've been running back to my computer and grabbing those little details. And I'm like, this is the stuff that the contractors deal with.
Yeah, and finding out at least what they've been dealing with on site is another benefit of being there.
Yeah.
Like when you get into a conversation with them on the different topics that they have to be aware of, delivery of products, how things are going to be built, sequencing, not only from our drawings, like how do things need to be lapped, but how are they going to get it with the trades being there and working around all the different people that are installing it.
Yeah.
So that really helps with at least a consideration of, hey, they're dealing with a lot of stuff too.
Yeah.
We need to be cognizant of that as we make site visits, so we're not in the way and slowing things down. We're just making our observations and helping out as best we can.
Yeah, exactly. And like always, like you're saying, like sequencing events and, like especially when you got multi-trades, like a mill worker may not be staining the units or clear coating. You've got the painter, or same thing with the doors are being hung, but their doors are being painted by the painter. And you got these sequence events, and once you add electrical to it, that's a whole nother element. And
yeah, trying to just organize, MEP before we close out walls, and then waterproof and watertight with roofs and walls before, additional work starts in the building. So yeah, it's a good opportunity to get out there and see it actually built.
And a couple of like things from today's session, like it was a fun one when you mentioned about, a standard American dollar bill is 6 inches long, and if you don't have your tape on you, that's a really good, and all you need is a couple of men, or flip them over, and like I think that was a good fact, but it's true.
Well, the catch for me is most industry standard upturns for like roof penetrations and roof flashings is 6 inches. So it's a great little like if I don't have that tape, I'll stick this in here. We know it's basically where it's supposed to be, and it's good to go.
Take a picture and then none the wiser, and that's so cool. But one thing I was really blown away when you guys put the question out there about how many individuals have been on site, like what is there, like, are they there? Have they been there at all? Are they there once a month or twice a month or every week? And the reality, it wasn't a lot.
Yeah. So having given this or a similar presentation before, I kind of knew where it was going. Yeah. But also getting feedback afterwards that like, hey, we might want to present at these other groups as well, because it's the same type of issue. Yeah. A room full of professionals that are in the AC industry, and a handful are on site every week. And I know they're doing multiple projects. Yeah. And then a few more every 2 weeks. And granted, what I do is CA, so I'm on the site all the time. Yeah. But you would expect, at least from a standpoint of, they design these buildings, and they need to be able to see that the work is conforming to the way they did it. That it matches, specs and drawings and things like that. It needs a little bit of time on site. Yeah. And so hopefully we get to drive that home in the day. Like, hey, make some more time, set aside a little bit of budget. You're going to need to be out here to see things happen.
Because like in Vancouver, BC, like with AIBC and again, RAC, all the kind of the government, the Canadian side, but I imagine the US would be the same in respect to that. Like at the end of the day, whoever's the architect on record, they've got to, if they ever got called in front of a judge, they would have to, be able to say that they've been to site. And yes, they're going to have maybe a dedicated CA person that's doing all the field reviews, but like the architect record needs to go out there at least once a month, for that monthly site meeting, do a walk around, make sure that things are being conforming to fire ratings, the life safety, and it's being followed. Because if you don't do that and you just leave it to your staff that's not on register, on title, or whatever on that sense,
you're stamping it. It's your responsibility.
Exactly.
And granted, it's a larger firm thing. Like you can have other people go out and do that work to be reviewed. Yeah. But the architect record has to put their stamp on it, and that means you're liable for all these things.
And that's the same way.
You need to know that it's built the way it's supposed to be.
And if it goes really ugly, which we hope it never does, but it happens. We heard the story today that Julia was talking about. But the reality is, if you're not on site and the judge calls you on it, it's not going to end well. I can't see it going very well.
I've been part of, I believe, 2 litigations now. Yeah. As an expert witness. Never been called for any other reason. Hope never to be.
Nope, and I don't want to be.
So, but it's not a situation you want to be in on either side, to be honest. Yeah. And hopefully, everybody has some time on site and can not deal with that.
Yeah. No, exactly. No, so 100%. Yeah, and we had a good laugh about your anchor bolt story where you went in and investigated, and all the anchor bolts were in place. Some washers were on there. That must be holding up, but there was no final attachment, and
all of the tie downs for walls to a curb of a building where none of them had bolts. Like I said, it's the first time I've ever seen a building that wasn't attached to the ground. Yeah. And for it to be marked, like somebody came in and did QA/QC, they spray painted it yellow. Somebody saw it, but there was no follow up. No. That made it another issue on top of that. Yeah. But yeah, so many strange things popped up. And
Yeah.
again, I get to look at some of the weirdest things because of the forensic side of things, and
Hmm.
that we are doing a lot of remedial design and fixing. But there are so many crazy things that show up.
What is the craziest thing that you've seen?
Oh man, whole roof membranes that are no longer attached to the roof, so they're just billowing. Single ply does that a lot. Um, just blistering of liquid applications where moisture got trapped inside or has been driven through the substrate.
Hmm. Yeah.
We see a lot of that type of failures. Some of the more interesting projects that are doing forensic investigations for like the La Brea Tar Pit Museum and being below
Yeah.
grade in excavation that has tar in it. And it's just a really abrasive element that the whole building's trying to survive in. Makes it really interesting to try to like problem solve things that are going on there when you have like a geotech report that says
Hmm.
like the land this is sitting on is going to try to eat the building. So
Right.
makes it interesting.
It definitely does. And what do you like? Well, that's a good topic on it. Like a whole discussion on it. And like, what do you guys, have you been in a spot where like you've tendered a job and you knew the soils were bad? Like, how did you pre-op? I've got my stories, but I want to hear your side.
I mean, we ask for the geotech reports pretty early on in the project,
Yeah,
so at
of
least we
course.
know what to kind of expect. Again, living in California, though, it's a whole nother ball game
Are
because you
soils
have
all over the map?
all over.
Yeah.
Seismic things are also going to be
Yeah.
an issue. Anywhere down in the LA area, you're going to have a lot of like gas issues in the soil as well.
Not radon.
Not
Yeah.
as much,
Yeah.
but having a methane barrier in LA is like a
Okay.
huge thing.
Okay.
Almost all of the businesses downtown will have like methane alarms, just for
Oh.
like carefulness of it.
Yeah.
We had to have like a meter when we got into any excavation going down there as well, just to like alarm us if something was going on, so we
Right.
could get out of excavations and be careful. So
Yeah.
it's a different consideration to deal with.
100%. And like going back to the geotech, like what we did is, yeah, because you can't punch holes every square meter. You just, the costs are, there. You kind of do some general ideas where you're going to be, like you said earlier on the process. We would do a stripping plan. So based on the geotech report, we would make some assumptions that, based on this, we want a contractor, you're going to strip down to these bearing points that based off the soils report, and anything, so we knew what we were locked in. And of course you could do your pre-QS, quantity surveyor, and then we put a unit rate in if there was any time that we had to issue a change directive because of the unknowns. And they actually get down there and go, oh my goodness, the soil's completely garbage and this is an area you didn't even test. Now we got to pull it out and put proper, fill, a structural fill, but the unit rate was there, and that worked out pretty good for the most part. Again,
It's a
it
good
was,
way to handle it. So yeah.
yeah, well, you kind of, again, you're eliminating the risk as much as you physically can. And then if you're really uncertain, then put like a cash allowance.
And knowing something is going to come up, but we're not sure what.
Exactly. So put, again, depends on how much it could be, it could be 500,000, it could be $1 million for this cash allowance to basically as a contingency, as just in case. But it worked out really well. And we used it a couple times because, again, you just can't punch every hole and you find some bad soft spots and then you have to fix it and issue the CD. And anyways, yeah. But like going back to site and site coordination, you had a really cool story about, there was like, you did a quick report and you saw there was a whole bunch of holes in the poly and everything like that.
Yeah, walking a site for below grade vapor barrier and just finding a lot of basically just traffic damage. Rebar goes in after this, that you're going to get holes in, and in this case it had a lot. But the contractor had already coordinated with the installer to have people on site the day that we were going to walk prior to the pour happening. And we were able to patch as we noticed all of them. So like just walking the site together and dealing with it, just really good coordination, solid communication, solved a lot of problems, kept everybody on schedule. They were able to pour the next day like they were supposed to be. We were able to knock out the whole area, find all these different penetration issues, fix them as we went, and it was great. So.
And that's like, yeah, when it comes to schedule, like those things are so powerful when a team does work together, because like by delaying that pour, who knows when the next pour would be? Maybe the weather would turn or anything like that, or the trucks are, they're scheduled for another route or another job. And that 1 week can turn nasty because, again, everything starts to backlog like a domino effect. So like having the contractor do that was great. And, it ties into, whole communication is key. It goes a long way. And, any recommendations with how you dealt with some of the GCs on site? Did you have any GCs that were hard to get along? They couldn't, but
building up a relationship with anybody that you're going to work for or with for the length of a project is important. And you're not always going to get along with people, and that's perfectly okay. Keep it professional the best you can.
Yeah.
But building up an active line of communication is huge, and it'll actually make things that might have been difficult much easier. Just knowing that you're available to help answer questions or ask them to get feedback. It's much easier to reach out and say, hey, I noticed on your 3-week look ahead that something was changing. Like, do I need to come out early for you? Or can I help you with something before I get there? That goes a really long way with building up that relationship.
Yeah.
And you never know, you're going to bump into them in another project later. If you get a good relationship already, it's wonderful.
Yeah. No, I agreed. And with that, and yeah, it's just key. There was a really good book. One of the old partners mentioned I can't remember the name of the author, but it was called Getting to Yes. That's the name of the book, Getting to Yes. And it's all about stripping the emotions from everything, from your conversation. So, because we can get very passionate about our job. We've put our, our tears and blood, sweat, and all this into these jobs. And then it's getting screwed up on site and you get real frustrated. And once money comes into it, doesn't matter who you are, money's a big, serious thing. Even though it's not your money, it still gets into a serious thing. And I've seen with the individuals that get really emotional, like you can't do that. You just got to keep the emotions out of it, focus on the business side. And like same thing when you go in an email, like when you write an email and you're upset, you're frustrated, take a breather, right? In that sense. And that goes back to communication.
Well, when it comes down to it, we're all on the same team trying to make a building that meets the specs and drawings and is going to be a good property for the owner. Yeah. And so the hope is everybody understands that, and regardless of whatever difficulties we have, we're able to settle down on this is the end goal and we need to make sure we get there.
100%. And it just even on top of that, what I thought was again, not wasting people's time, going to site and reading last site meetings, meeting minutes, meeting notes. I think that's great. I think that's a good practice for anyone. Just to be clear what was up in there, not necessarily the RFIs, because so much has changed. They should have been come and gone, because this should just be fresh RFIs, unless there was something that's just, you're waiting for a service to come in or whatever the case is. But the point is that you're doing that due diligence and then you're just bringing the issues to site.
Yeah. But also keeping your eyes open. So you're there usually to go after one or two specific things. So you're coming in to observe a portion of work that's just being completed or that it's in progress. Yeah. But being able to be mindful of what's coming next and knowing in the construction skills of what to expect in the coming weeks. Sometimes you have the opportunity to fix something before it becomes an issue. Again, saves everybody a little bit of time and money. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Is there anything that we haven't talked about, for kind of just that extra advice?
Yeah, I'd say for young professionals or emerging professionals that really want to get on site, reach out to your senior staff and your project managers if you're working for an architecture firm, and basically say, hey, I'd really like to be on site. I'd like to learn from what's going on there and be able to compare what we're designing and writing the specifications and putting in our drawings to what's actually happening on site. But also when you're in the office, get involved with RFI response and submittal responses, because then you're reading through the specs and you're supposed to know what's going to be on the site then. So that site visit will be much easier once you've already kind of integrated a little bit of CA from the office side as well. Yeah. Reach out if you're in school as a young, inspiring designer and you want to do an internship. You can always do construction management with a construction group, actually learn how it's built instead of working for just an architecture firm. Yeah. You'll come in with a very different mindset and a different kind of grouping of let's call it a different skill set that'll go a long way. Yeah. And that's something else that it really is beneficial when you're in a position where everybody else is doing design, but you actually know how it's built. Yeah. That helps out a lot.
Absolutely. So where can everyone find you?
Easiest is either on LinkedIn, Nathan Taylor, search Northern California or DTR Consulting Services. You'll find me. I post a lot. And also on Instagram under Buildingscape, which is also the platform that hosts Inktober every October. Yeah. But we also share a lot of different construction and architectural photos to build up conversations. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Well, thanks for doing this, and thanks for being my first guest on the show. This has been awesome.
Very flattering. Journey. So thank you.
Yeah. Yes, you should. Flattered. I'm honored in that sense. But yeah, this has been so much fun, and I cannot wait till the next CSI, and we'll do it all again, and we'll get all the runs, and we'll do the podcast, and we'll do more. We'll definitely do some more between, and 100%.
I'm sure. Yeah, excellent. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So in that saying, guys, architects keep designing and contractors keep making those building plans a reality. We'll see you on the next one.